In this lesson, we're going to derive the rhythm of bounce high, bounce low that we sang in the last lesson. A couple of questions that we're going to answer in this lesson are, how is rhythm different from beat? How do rhythm and beat relate? So let's move on to bounce high, bounce low, and let's figure out how many sounds happen on a beat. If you have this page, would you sing bounce high as you point at the heartbeats? Bounce high, bounce low, bounce the ball to shine low. This time, would you use your rhythm fingers and tap the way the words go, or the rhythm? We're going to catch the words as they come out of our mouth. Bounce high, bounce low, bounce the ball to shine low. Let's just think about the first 4 beats. How many sounds happen on each beat? Bounce high, bounce low. How many sounds happen on the first beat? Bounce. 1 sound on the first beat. What about the second beat? Bounce high. Only 1 sound during the duration of that beat. What about the third and the fourth? They're all the same, aren't they? They all have 1 sound on the beat. Bounce high, bounce low. So please draw 1 beach ball or basketball, or whatever kind of ball you would like to draw, above each heart. I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay, now let's move to the second set of 4 beats in this song. What happens during bounce the ball to shine low? How many sounds happen during the first beat? Bounce the. Sing it with me again. Bounce the. There are 2 sounds on that first beat. Bounce the. What about beat 2? Bounce the ball to. There are 2 sounds during the duration of that second beat. Now, what about the third beat? Bounce the ball to shine. How many sounds during the duration of that beat? Only 1. And the fourth beat. Bounce the ball to shine low. Is this, we're going to answer a question about this now. Is this inactive, iconic, or symbolic? It is iconic. And all of our little bouncing balls as our icons. Icons are picture representations for the language that we're guiding students to be able to function in. This is iconic, the second part of Jerome Bruner's stages. We can take the beach balls away and we'll just have the stems, and we could read the stems or the sticks. So for when there is 1 sound on a beat, we're going to say do. So here we go. Do, 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 do. So every sound that happens on a beat is do. Would you do that with me again? Do, 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 do. Here's what those notes look like. Oh, sorry, here come our bouncing balls. I got those slides backwards, I apologize. Now we take the bouncing balls away. Now we have note heads. These are quarter notes, and they say do. Would you read them with me again? Do, 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 do. Now the part, there it is with the bouncing balls. We're going to take those balls away because we're moving from iconic to symbolic. And we have stick notation. We only have the stems and beams. And for the eighth notes that have two sounds on it, we're going to say do day. Do day, do day, do is what that rhythm says. Do day, do day, do. Would you do that with me again? Do day, do day, do. So we have quarter notes and eighth notes. So let's look at the rhythm values that we have learned. We have learned quarter note. The quarter note says do and has one sound on a beat. I've got the quarter note here for you with the stem going up and the stem going down. They're both the same. They both get the same value. The pitch is determined by the staff line, which we'll talk about that in another lesson. Over on the right side, two eighth notes paired say do day. Did you say that with me? Do day. There are two equal sounds on a beat. And as you can see, they could be written with the stems going up and the beam at the top, or the stems going down and the beam at the bottom. So we're going to read some quarter and eighth note rhythms. I'll read and then let you read after me. Here I go. Do, 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 do. Do, do, day, do, do. Do, day, do, day, do. Do, day, do, do. Do, day, do, day, do, do. Do, day, do, day, do, do, day. So now we're going to answer a question. Is this inactive, iconic, or symbolic? It is symbolic. We are reading music notation. We're reading musical language with all of our little eighth notes flying in here to remind us of that. With children, we would take a lot more time in the iconic stage, deriving many songs with icons, but we don't have that luxury. We have to move quickly into the symbolic stage in this class. So here is the process for teaching musical concepts. We go from exposure and experience to literacy. The most solid learning processes always move from exposure and experience to literacy. So exposure experience relates to the inactive stage. Literacy relates to iconic and symbolic. Here is some terminology related to the parts of notes. So we have a quarter note over on the left-hand side of this screen. You see the arrow pointing at stem. The circle part is the note head. In the middle of the screen, you have an eighth note. The part across the top is called a beam. This is two eighth notes paired, or two eighth notes that are beamed together. And then on the right side of the screen, you have a dotted eighth note. This is a flag which is what you have when you have a single note that would have a beam. If it's not with a partner or in a group, it has a flag, and then there's a dot. And we'll talk about more about those in another time. That's terminology related to note parts. So let's come back and look at those essential questions. How is rhythm different from beat? How do rhythm and beat relate? Please post your thoughts on this on the discussion board for Unit 1.